Hello there, Commonwealth from me. A few months separates us from Zelda's 40th anniversary on February 21st, 2026. So will it give us the release of a brand new Zelda game? Most likely not, but what it can do is pretty much everything else. And that is where the bigger master plan, first teased by Nashweedle in late August, comes in. As he stated, quote,
de marketing donde va a haber varias fechas que se va a hablar de Zelda. Pero esto es una campaña de marketing que va a durar todo el año.
In other words, an extensive plan. It will not be a year of Zelda like we saw with Luigi in 2013, but more of a year-long affair of having a constant presence of the franchise ongoing from January to December. A celebration that will expand the franchise beyond traditional Zelda media. That's right, the movie, but even more than that. Now, we all know that Nashweedle has been the source also behind the Ocarina of Time switch to remake rumor, and he has previously stated that Nintendo themselves, not Grezzo or some other studio, is developing it. But the question begs, could this still be a 2025 reveal? I think with this update from Nashweedle, no. As after the triple, Breath, Tears, Wind Waker GameCube Online and Age of Imprisonment reveal on April 2nd, it is unlikely that we'll see any other Zelda reveals until the start of 2026 and the 40th anniversary. Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment is also there, but treated more as part of 2026, as it was the only Nintendo franchise game that didn't get a 2025 in any way, shape or form, just winter. The reason is very likely that it is our transition into Zelda's 40th anniversary this winter. A new beginning for Zelda as we start the cycle anew in a new decade for the franchise. 15 years after Ocarina of Time introduced the era of Zelda 3D remakes and remasters. A process concluded this year in 2025 as all 3D Zelda games have now seen visual upgrades. Ocarina, Majora, The Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Fittingly, there's a reason to go through this cycle again, as 4 of the above-mentioned titles cannot be enjoyed on the Nintendo Switch 2 in their previous remade/remastered version, and those again don't necessarily have to be the ultimate versions of said games. As the 3DS upgrade of Ocarina of Time is showing its age visually in comparison to, say, the Final Fantasy VII Remake from 9 years later, 14 on the Nintendo Switch 2. Being the only 3D Zelda still without proper dual analog camera controls. A potential goldmine that has been sitting there and which Nintendo is well aware of when by February 21st, 2026, we're still years away from paying $80 for the next open-air Zelda game. Yes, it hurts, and Ocarina 4K, if properly remade by Nintendo in 60 FPS, could likely cost the same. That's just a reality we have to face, but it's likely a price we're willing to pay for a bigger overhaul and the ultimate version of the highest rated game of all time. In fact, if it is out before the next 3D Mario game, Ocarina of Time might be the second $80 title. Why? As this is an easy 10+ million game copies sold throughout the Nintendo Switch 2's lifecycle. But what can we get for that price, apart from dual analog camera controls and better performance, a visual overhaul and potentially a new art style? Well, all the 3DS bonus content, an expanded map, and even more cut content from the N64 original, like the Temple of Light, and introducing something we have never seen in any Zelda before. Full voice acting, not only in a few story cutscenes, as seen in Breath of the Wild, Age of Calamity, Tears of the Kingdom, and Age of Imprisonment, but rather the entire game. You know, just like in Final Fantasy VII Remake. I really believe that the reason Nintendo are hard at work with Ocarina of Time yet again is because of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Ocarina is followed by Majora's Mask, and there's potential for even more down the line. A voice acting future also goes well together with the voice acted by British actors live-action Zelda movie premiering in May 2027. A strategy, if you will. Though would a reveal of Ocarina of Time mark the beginning of 2026? Likely not, as likely it is for Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. With that said, Hyrule Warriors will likely not be treated as the 40th anniversary game, at least not one of the main events. Instead, the honor of introducing it will likely go to Ocarina of Time, unless 2 other titles may show up instead in the end of February, and then see the return of Eiji Aonuma, since Twilight Princess has its 20th anniversary. But the only way to celebrate the 40th, even better than with Ocarina of Time, will be with a fully redone 3D remake of the original Legend of Zelda on the NES. One that would also be voice acted. Even so, There are so far no signs to Twilight Princess or 3D remake of the original Zelda. And to be fair, a Twilight Princess 4K is better saved for a 25th anniversary in 2031. As a result, we'll stick to the notion that Ocarina is key to the next generation of 3D remakes. And based on the information we have so far, it is likely to follow in the footsteps of 2019's Link's Awakening and 2021's Skyward Sword HD and be revealed in the first Nintendo Direct of next year. A summer release between July and September with themed Joy-Cons or even Switch 2 system is possible. In fact, it might even be the first themed system, just like what was the case with Ocarina 3D for the 3DS in 2011. Either way, it is likely that Nintendo will recognize, or at least bring up Zelda early in 2026. And according to Nashweedle, Nintendo is planning far more than just a regular, which would just be a remake/remaster with hardware tricks. Well, that, and some DLC for an already released title. In 2021, it was Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, Guardian of Remembrance. Well, in 2026, it is likely to be DLC for the previously released Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. Maybe DLC that isn't canon as the main game is marketed as. But still, this isn't very different from the 35th anniversary. But here's the big thing that could change everything. Namely, with the next Zelda game. On May 12, 2026, 3 years have passed since the release of Tears of the Kingdom. Why does this matter? As 3D Zelda games always get revealed less than 3 years after the previous game came out. Even the sequel to Breath of the Wild kept that tradition with 2 years and 3 months. Still, it's possible we might go slightly beyond it, as the only way to prevent that is with a February reveal, which would be the longest wait of all time. And truth to be told, we have already surpassed the time from Breath of the Wild's release to the reveal of the sequel. Still, I don't think revealing the next Zelda game is the first priority for Nintendo or the Zelda team. Instead, it is likely to time each reveal correctly and give proper attention to each highlight on the 2026 calendar before moving on to the next. That is also what Nashweedle has been hinting towards. So, getting Age of Imprisonment out, then revealing Ocarina of Time 4K or whatever this year's release remake will be, and first then follow it up with the reveal of the next Zelda game. Well, that and the first brand new map in a 3D Zelda in 12 years. The perfect conclusion to the spring season. And also, summer or early autumn for the release of Ocarina, an eventual Joy-Con/themed system with it. With a few differences, it is really similar, though already greater than 2019, as we also have Hyrule Warriors. Still, autumn marks for the second big divergent from the previous anniversaries, namely the first teaser trailer of the Zelda movie, breaking Zelda's exclusive tie or convention with games and books for modern storytelling once and for all. Not only that, bring the legend to life in live action with proper real actors or people rather than drawn/3D model characters and landscapes. A first for the franchise. And the clear aim for Nintendo is to replicate the success of the Mario movie, so when would that first teaser trailer be? I would say October/November 2026, as the Mario movie had its first teaser trailer prior to its early April premiere in early October. Counting in the delay, we end up in the middle of autumn. Now, that looks already bigger than the 35th and 30th anniversary of Zelda, but truth to be told, we can get very close to surpassing the 25th with a final ace up Nintendo's sleeve. Not only giving us a first look at the next game and movie, but also the one thing we all dream about. Finally experiencing the legend beyond the screen or a book. That is right. The theme park speculations that have been in full swing since Zelda series producer Eiji Aonuma visited the construction site of Donkey Kong Country at Universal Studios Japan in January 2024. Now, Sony Pictures, not Universal, is handling the live-action Zelda movie, so it might be a barrier. Or not, as a theme park doesn't have to be tied to movies. Since Super Nintendo World and Donkey Kong Country in both Osaka and Epic Universe in Orlando are tied to the game worlds, not the Mario movie. In fact, Donkey Kong Country is directly based on Donkey Kong Country Returns. Hence Zelda's Hyrule with a non-game specific link, or just go for one of the two most iconic versions of this land. Breath of the Wild or Ocarina of Time. Either option would be awesome. Though I would be lying if I don't prefer to finally see this concept art of Castle Town materialized. and in the real world of all places. Interestingly enough, this would just be an evolution of the theme park found at the E3 2016 booth during the 30th anniversary of Zelda. But where would such a magical kingdom possibly fit? New Universal Studios planned for 2031 in an actual kingdom, the United Kingdom. And guess when construction is starting? 2026, the 40th anniversary of Zelda. Anyway, what do you think of Zelda's upcoming 40th anniversary? Sound off in the comment section down below. If you haven't already, then be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press notification bell to not miss anything. Last but not least, a big thanks to you for watching and to all our patreon.com/commonrealm patrons. Special shoutouts go to Raw Producer, JC Funk and Heroes, Cheryl, Garrett Hoy, Holly Wolf and Kintaro. You all rock and please enjoy these awesome videos.